Hey guys, welcome to Brickstars. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Fright Knights theme from the late 1990s. So this was part of the Lego Castle lineup and it was introduced in 1997. It only went to 1998 and it was a theme that was preceded by the Dragon Knights, which are similar in some ways to the Fright Knights, and it was followed by a completely different theme, the Ninja lineup. So nowadays we do have a lot of the Ninjago sets, but back then Ninja was the first kind of Japanese ninja style theme, and it was actually part of the Castle lineup. So the Fright Knights had about 14 sets, some of them small, some of them mid-sized. I think there's about 4 or 5 what I would say legitimate sets. And there was basically 5 members of the Fright Knights faction. So there are more minifigures in this theme. There's another knight. There's what looks to be like a Dark Forest knight and an original Dark Knight, but really there's 5 main Fright Knights. And we're going to speculate a bit into the allegiance and who their enemies are in this video as well. And then near the end, we're actually going to discuss kind of some of the more recent Fright Night references that we've seen and speculate a bit on what we may see in the future. So first off, let's have a look at the members of the Fright Knights. So like I said, there's 5 main Fright Night characters. Of course, the first one being Basil the Bat Lord and Wilma the Witch. They're pretty iconic minifigures. They both have capes. And then next up, there's 3 unique knights. A lot of these faces are pretty standard 90s minifigure faces, but they work really good in this theme. So I do love Basil's torso. I think it's bold with the red, the black, the yellow, and Wilma kind of has the same colors. He's of course the Bat Lord, and we'll see later on he's got a cape with a bat. She's kind of like a spider witch. This is a great face, like very cartoony. She's got the tooth, distinct witch features. And then these guys with their different armor. Again, they're usually black with gray and touches of red. So the theme was pretty well branded and distinct with their minifigures. And what I love about this theme is a lot of the interesting parts we get. So first up, looking at these shields, not only do they look pretty cool, like I like the shiny silver finish they have, and the bat is very distinct, but not a lot of factions got both shields. So for example, the Forestmen only received a triangular shield with a deer on it, or some other factions also only had the triangle or just the round. In this case, we get both, so I think that's a really nice luxury to have, especially in a castle theme. And I touched on the capes. So you look at, for this being back in the 90s, like very high quality print on the capes. And back then, like capes were usually just flat. So to actually have this kind of serrated edge was pretty cool. And 2 different colors. So Basil has the gray one and Wilma wears the red one. So it was awesome to get some capes, and we did include an image here of the flag, but the theme also had a gray bat logo flag as well. And of course the dragons. So I'm not sure when exactly the dragons were introduced. I want to say the green dragon was available before. The black dragon may be one that's new to this theme. But awesome molds, smaller looking dragons. To this day, probably my favorite dragons that Lego's released. I know some castle sets and some of the new Ninjago stuff has a lot of different dragons that are obviously brick built, but as a singular mold, like these I think worked great. Iconic ears, the mouth could open up, you could put a flame, you could sit a minifigure, and I remember as a kid always liking the fact that I could swap out the wings. So the wings are either translucent orange, red, and there was black at the time. So I made an all black dragon, and that was something cool that you could kind of customize your dragon a little bit. So really nice that this wave actually featured both colors of dragons. And then we have the barding. So I'm a big fan of these horse bardings, and if you're a collector of these or you have them, and especially if they have both clips in good condition, you know that these bardings are not cheap. So there's bardings from other factions, whether it's Ninja, Royal Knights, a lot of other Lion Knights, castle themes. These bardings typically go for $20, $30, $40 in good condition. So I love this piece, and it looks great. So again, they've kept true to the red, black, and yellow, fitting the rest of the theme. And we got some cool headwear. So of course the Dragon Master's helmet returns here from the previous theme, but the Bat Lord himself has an all-new helmet, and this was maybe one of the most iconic helmets back in the day that LEGO produced. So any catalog, any magazine, you would instantly recognize the Bat Lord. And of course we see a return of this with the Series 25 minifigure, which we'll talk about a bit later. So seeing this helmet make a reappearance here kind of makes us speculate that maybe they're a cousin theme to the Dragon Masters. So great looking helmet. It's nice that it kept going throughout the 90s. So jumping into the sets, there's several small sets that I think were somehow promotional sets. They have the shell logo, kind of weird, but nonetheless, I do love the fact that there's a couple of these small sets, because it gives you the opportunity to add to any castle scene or castle building that you do, and it was a relatively cheap way to grow your Fright Knights army. And as we go through these small sets, you'll see each set kind of featured a slightly different minifigure and some usable parts. So even this small set, you get a barrel, a bat, some wagon wheels, and a minifigure with a crossbow. So not a bad little set. Same as this one, like this was a good way to get the Bat Lord himself, and probably due to cost, maybe intentionally for collectability reasons, LEGO didn't include the cape on this one. So if you wanted the Bat Lord with the cape, you'd have to actually have one of the big sets that we'll see later on. But nonetheless, you do get a shiny chrome sword, which is also a pretty rare and valuable part. Here's the Bat Lord again with a little catapult and another flying machine. So this theme was obviously pretty imaginary, kind of fantasy era castle, but I think that's okay. It does get some bad reviews online where people saying, oh, it's unrealistic, this and that, but we had a couple castle themes prior to this that were all very standard castle, medieval style, so I don't think it's a bad thing to have a theme that's slightly different and it's not just gray walls and things like that. So in this one you do get the crystal ball and a nice bat as well. And then we have the crossbow card. I love this set because one, I do love this minifigure, I love the torso print, but to get 2 shields, to get several crossbows, a spear, like a lot of weapons for a tiny little set. And we threw this picture in here because it's very similar to the Dragon Masters cart. It may actually be, it is a different build, but it's very similar. And funny enough, it's the same face of a minifigure, so whether that was intentional or not, but it's cool to see. And then we do get the Wilma's Witch and Fireplace set, so nice little scene you could make, or as a child you get this and you can kind of play around. You have your crystal ball, a barrel, of course, what witch is complete without a cat and a bat. And you do get the wand as well, which is a pretty cool piece. And this may be the last small set, the treasure cart. Nothing crazy, but again, you do get a different minifigure. And what I found cool about this set is you actually get a gray bat, which I think all the other sets have just the regular black bat, which is a pretty common piece. I don't think the gray bat is very rare, but maybe at the time it was decently rare. So it's cool that you get a different color and a spear, sword, some treasure. Like I said, all these little sets, you add them up, they're nice add-ons to some of the bigger sets. And this is kind of the first, I'd say, medium-sized set. Something Lego used to do is release battle packs. So what a great way to get most of the figures of this theme. So of course we get Basil and Wilma, and you get some shields, swords, different weapons, and then the box art, just beautiful. Those of you that follow us on Instagram know our style is, a lot of our photos have this kind of 90s Lego style where we mix real Lego elements with natural elements, rock and whatnot. So this is where we draw the inspiration for that. This set has always been kind of a funny one for me, the Witch's Windship. It's kind of like a hot air balloon, but instead of a balloon, it's a dragon. And one thing I want to point out, so you'll see later on in the video, is the orientation of the dragon wings. In my mind, this is the correct way to put them, with the one point forward, but you'll see Lego's kind of inconsistent with that. So I don't know if that was just a miss with their photographers who just didn't know or didn't care. But anyway, that's just a little side thing. What we see here is a glimpse of the instruction manual. The back of the box is even weirder because, like, what is the dragon doing? He's kind of got like this mask on. But again, it triggers a child's creativity. So I do still miss the fact that they used to give us alternative builds. And it did have a bit of a play feature where these axes could move, so she could fly in and do some damage. And of course she has her broomstick if she has to evacuate and fly off. And you see here we get the black wings instead of red wings like we do in some other sets. Next up is the Bat Lord. Pretty simple name for a set. Great set to pick up to get Basil and a dragon. Like nowadays the dragon itself I think is $10 to $15. I don't know how much Basil is, but I know the sword alone is probably $5 to $10. The cape is also not cheap, so this set may have been $5 or $10 when it came out, and really no pieces. But I remember getting this set as a kid, and it was kind of almost like if you got an action figure. It's just a toy in itself, right? So you fly the dragon around, you have Basil, he's got his special whatever it is with the bat on it, his sword. Cool set and easy way to get Basil. And this is really the first kind of mid-range set. It's called the Bat Lord's Catapult, although we don't get the Bat Lord, but we do get two of his knights. I do like this feature here on the horse where they kind of have a bat sitting there, or maybe it was like a bat statue of sorts, and a catapult with a barrel so that you can shoot at your enemies, which we touched on a bit earlier. We're not sure exactly who they are. It seems like it was the Lion Knights, but we only get one extra non-Fright Knight in this theme, so we'll discuss that when we get to there. And here is the back of the box, so even with such a small set you can actually make some cool different scenes. And now we get into the slightly bigger sets. So this was the Trader Transport set 6047. It had about 130 parts and 3 minifigures. What I love about this set is it comes with the barding. So we get our first look at the barding, the dragon, Basil, and really cool chariot like Prisoner Transport. So this is the minifigure that I was talking about. This is one of those original Black Knight torsos. So was he part of the Fright Knights? Was he one of the guys being captured? I'm not too sure, but really cool set. I remember one of my friends had this set and we loved playing with this, just having the dragon drag the chariot and Basil running around with them. So cool set. And what was interesting about it is it actually came in a version that came with this like plastic cave, and it just added so much playability to it. You could put the cave down and then have your dragon there, or come out of the cave and chase the guys. So it was a flimsy plastic thing, but it definitely added a lot to the overall set for playing. So they haven't done that often in the past, and I don't believe they do it anymore, but a cool thing for sure. And just another look at the set overall. So we see the different colored wings. This dragon has the translucent orange ones, but the chariot features black ones, and a nice sized set. Next up is the second biggest set in this theme. So this is the Witch's Magic Manor. It has 228 parts and 6 minifigures, and it was kind of like a rocky refuge of sorts where I guess Wilma ran the show. In this case, we get a green dragon. We get our trusty knight again with the round shield and sword. Here we have the triangular shield, a skeleton. The scroll piece makes a return from Magisto's sets, and this is one that confuses me because we've got this kind of forestman looking figure. I don't know if he was allied with these guys or if he was a prisoner, because here he's kind of inside and almost marching on with them, but you'll see shortly that he's in prison. And then we have this door entry into the castle. So what's really cool about these 90s sets is they were very simple in their builds, almost like playhouses. And if I were to compare them to today's sets I think are definitely much better for display value, much more realistic. They use finer pieces. These ones used bigger pieces and were simpler, but they had play features like dropping this door, and there's a couple other things here. You could kind of turn the skeleton around. So a really fun set. You can see some of those play features here. So the door dropping down, and here's our poor forestman. Now they've got him in a prison next to a fire. Maybe they're gonna cook him or something. And you see this fireplace. Again, kind of funny. I don't know if they're scaring him or if he's in on the joke, but they turn the fireplace around and the skeleton's there. So pretty cool play features. And of course the alternative builds. So totally remade the castle, something crazy. You can kind of make good guys and bad guys. I don't know what this guy's doing with the wings. He's kind of flapping at these guys. And what's interesting is they've actually swapped Wilma's face with one of the bearded guys here. And I think what they're doing is making kind of a black wizard. I don't know what they did with Wilma then. She probably became a knight or something, but just shows you really the only limit is your imagination. So pretty fun set. And next up is the biggest set in the group, and this is the Night Lord's Castle. So almost 600 pieces, which was huge for a set back in those days. And 8 minifigures. So we see a range of minifigures. Here's the Royal Knight I was alluding to earlier that I think is definitely outnumbered here. This set, I think we get all the different Fright Knights. And here's that flag piece that I talked about. So several factions got the flag. It's nice to see that the Fright Knights did too. And what's interesting here is, I don't know if the set was re-released a couple times or if it had different boxes, but you see this version of the set is kind of like a walled castle, and then this one is like a tower. So, and I think both were on the front. So in any case, it's cool to see. I personally like the tower more. I think it looks more majestic and tall. I mean, a lot of times back then they used raised base plates. In this case they didn't, but it still had a lot of height. Like this set is probably close to 2 feet tall, if not more. And it really had everything. So if you were to get one set in this theme where you got the shields, the barding, the dragon, the flag, all the minifigures, and the parts to kind of make whatever, this would be the one. So great looking set. Here's an alternative build look. Again, what are they doing? I don't know, but they've got the dragon maybe caged up, ready to attack. You see Wilma here, she's putting some potions together, casting a spell. Some unfortunate knight tried to take over the Fright Knights and didn't do too well. And this is, I guess, how they generate power. They've got a little bit of a windmill there, so a lot of options you see here. They're dropping cannonballs, having some fun. And here's just another look at that tower set. So great looking set. Overall, I know the theme gets a lot of bad reviews. And part of the reason is, like I mentioned, those big kind of clunky Lego pieces. Here's a snippet from the instruction manual, like even the base plates and these corner pieces and stuff. But truthfully, this was the style in the 90s, and I think it was probably even better than some of the builds before it. Very similar to the Ninja theme after it. Lego really focused on play features back then. So were they the most detailed and greatest builds? No, but they were definitely fun. So, and you got a lot of parts, and I don't think any of these parts are stickered pieces. So if we look back at the Magisto set we got this year, they remade the scroll, but they made it a sticker piece. So this was all printed. The shields were printed, the capes were printed, like top quality stuff. And now we're going to speculate a bit into the future. So these minifigures were released as part of the collectible minifigure series. I think this one's been pretty popular lately because it's part of series 25. I'm not exactly sure when this guy was released. I want to say just a couple series ago. Their shields are different, but redesigned. We got a new shield, and they've made the Fright Knights seem more zombie, vampire, fantasy-ish. So we no longer see the original Lego yellow faces. But both minifigures had extraordinary print. We have this minifigure. We're going to be hunting for this minifigure to get at least a couple of him, because you get a printed torso, printed legs, the arms have printing on the side, an all-new shield, a pretty cool weapon, and a remade bat helmet. So, and not to mention the cape as well. So I think it's honestly a great remake of an original classic. I probably prefer the original helmet a little bit, but this one is more sleek, it's more refined. Overall, amazing minifigure, and it makes us excited for the future because we're really hopeful we get a return of Castle Lego. And if we got the Fright Knights, I think that would be a great thing. So we've actually taken a step in redesigning some of the original minifigures. And here's our look at what we expect to see or hope to see. So real quick, this is the original 5 on the top here. And you can see our redesign, where we tried to stay true to the color balance. So the dark grays, in our case, we leaned a bit more towards dark red instead of the bright red, because I don't think dark red was available back then, but I think it works a bit more for a castle theme. And just slight updates, you know, the printing's improved nowadays, so having some shiny chainmail. In this case, we kind of redesigned this big metal plate to incorporate a bat. This is just the Bat Lord that Lego redesigned. We didn't touch it. We think they did a phenomenal job. Like you can see, comparing it here to the original Bat Lord, they had the yellow dots. Now they're kind of like yellow diamonds, and I think on the actual minifigure they've got a bit of shine to them, almost like a gradient that goes from yellow to gold. These black lines, they've kept that. The general feel is spot on, and the fact that they reproduced the cape in a similar shape, they really didn't cut any corners on this one. And next up we have Wilma. So what we wanted to do here is really keep the red, black, and yellow. We think those colors pop a lot. We did take some elements from previous Witch minifigures that Lego's released, but we also tried to mimic her original torso. So we kept the black, we've got the yellow lines, some more detailed buttons. She had a necklace with a spider on it, or like a spider badge. We've kept that, and then we gave her more kind of spiderweb elements for the collar. Obviously the dress has a spiderweb, and the cape is actually a cape that LEGO's released recently in the Monkey Kid lineup, but we've recolored it to red here, so we think that cape works great. Yeah, in hindsight, if we were to remake this again, we probably would have given Wilma her black hair and drawn a tooth on her, but that'll be for a future update. And last but not least, we just wanted kind of a generic Fright Knights knight. We found it weird that this guy just had kind of these circles on him, and I actually think LEGO reused this as a soccer jersey at one point in another theme, so it kind of ruined it for me. But I did want to keep some of those circular elements, so I added them in the shoulders, reused one of the parts from Viking torso, and then added a belt with the bat icon. And I'm imagining if someone's building a Fright Knight army, they get a couple of these guys. Maybe you have a special knight here, you have your brave leader knight here, and of course Mr. and Mrs. Fright Knight. So that's our idea for the future, and we're excited. Hopefully we get a Fright Knights theme. Let us know in the comments what you thought about the Fright Knights and what you think of our redesign. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.